Hello.
Hi, Kristen. How's it going?
It goes well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm good. How's your day? How's your Saturday?
Oh, my Saturday was great. We had a beautiful, sunny, warm day in Ottawa. Are you in Ottawa as well?
I am in Washington, D.C. right now.
Oh, goodness. Oh, so you have beautiful, warm days all the time.
Well, I wish. Winters can get heavy for sure. How's Ottawa today?
It is awesome. We had, let's see, 24, which is roughly 80, 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was sunny, and I sat out in the backyard and read a book, and it was great.
Oh man, that sounds amazing actually. I've been practically indoors all day and I just went outdoors to get some bubble tea. And I was like, this weather, just the fall, is always something else.
Yeah, we've had a beautiful fall this year. We've been very lucky.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Also, I need to get kind of like the same swag that you have. I only have early talent swag.
Oh,
I need to get that Shopify shirt immediately.
yeah.
I,
I got one when I started 3 years ago, and I keep it for events like this, so it still looks good.
I got the one that they give you, then you hire the gigantic sweatshirt, and it's just like XL for me. I just fly
That's
with
too
it. So
big.
I'm like, no,
Oh,
I had to give it to somebody else.
mm.
We have so far 16 people here. Hi, welcome everybody. Let's say hi in the chat. I just want to make sure that we're still awake. I know that a lot of people have been hacking 24/7. I mean, since last night. So I'm excited just to see who is here, starting a conversation. There you go. And we're gonna get started in 5 minutes. Let's give 5 minutes to people to come in. Have you ever done a hackathon, Christian?
No, I have not.
No, never.
No, I
Have,
think the
have you
closest I ever
ever?
came is I did the ACM programming contest at one point when I was in university, but that was a few years ago.
What about a hack day at Shopify?
Oh yes, yeah. We I participate every single time. It's a great opportunity to do something different, learn something that I don't know about, or scratch an itch, get something fixed that has been bugging me for a while. So yes.
Yeah, yeah. I actually have never done a hack project, but while I was like investigating a challenge to bring to ShellHacks, I was looking to a bunch of projects that we've done at Shopify, and I'm like, my God, they're so cool. Like some of them are just like really cool, and I'm like, what happened to this? I want to see what happened here. It's like really cool projects at Shopify on Hack Day. Hi, Dora. Hi, Kimberly. Jalen. Am I saying your name right? Xinjin Jian? Xinji. I wonder. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Juan Pablo, Cesar. How's everybody doing today? We're about to get started in around 4 minutes, so sit up tight and we'll get going. There's such great talent in this hackathon, Christian. Like I've been getting DMs and just questions about the challenge that we're doing, and I'm just like impressed on how talented the students are, the participants are. It's insane. Shazad, am I saying that right? Shazad, hi. Am I saying your name right? I wonder where's everybody joining us from. So Christian just said he's in Ottawa. I am in Washington, D.C. Ah, I said it right. Good. Where's everybody joining us from? Let's go. Would love to see New York City. I miss New York. 305. Man, Florida. Miami is something else. Fort Lauderdale. Bogota, Colombia. That's where my family is right now. I wish I was there. Massachusetts, Quito, Ecuador, all the way from Ecuador. We have people in Arizona, Orlando, Chicago, California. Is there any Canadians here? I think Christian is feeling a little Canadian student in Miami, Christian. We have one. So that's good. We have some Canadian representation. New Jersey. I love Jersey. Quebec. Nice. Oh man, Quebec. I love Quebec. A Peruvian in Miami, Kevin. I love this. My Peruvian have absolutely the best food, hands down. Hands down, the best food. Okay, we'll get started in 2 minutes. But before we get started, I'm from Barranquilla, Colombia, Juan Pablo. That's where I was born and raised. So before we get started, everybody tell me in the chat, is there a food that everybody loves, but you hate? Christian, what is a food that everybody loves, but you hate or you dislike?
Well, I'm not sure everybody loves it. My wife's Japanese, and Japan has this dish called natto, which is a fermented soybean dish. I can't stand it, but it's very popular in Japan.
I need to try that. I haven't tried that. I can't believe Kimberly doesn't like pollo tropical. Christian, have you tried pollo tropical?
No, I have not.
So pollo tropical is like fast food of in Florida, but it's not fast food like KFC. It's a little bit better. Like the chicken is nice and everything is nice, and it's actually really popular and amazing. So I'm really upset that Kimberly doesn't like pollo tropical right now, and you should try it next time you go to Florida, Christian.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Weston doesn't like beans. That's interesting. Jalen doesn't like sushi. Wow. Okay. That's definitely, yeah. I love sushi. Hamburgers. Tamia, you don't like hamburgers. Ice cream. Mohammed, what is happening in this chat? We're losing control. For the newbies, the question is there a food that everybody loves, but you hate or don't like? I know. I can't believe ice cream. Para, I can't believe. Pizza? That's my favorite food. Oysters. I love oysters. A good set of oysters is actually really nice. I can't believe you don't like pizza and ice cream. That's like the best combination. Poutine. Just kidding. Everybody loves poutine. Tanya, don't do that. Don't do that to our Canadian soul. Croquetas? Jasmine, somebody just killed Jasmine internet right now. Somebody do this right now. She needs to be disconnected. I cannot. Croquetas is one of my favorite dishes ever. Please, somebody help me. Jasmine needs to be disconnected right now. Hey, Jazz, by the way. It's too soft. Oh, come on. Okay, let's get started. Everybody. Welcome to Shopify session. We're going to be talking about technicals interviews today. Christian is going to give you the rundown. He has an amazing presentation, one of my favorites that I've seen about technical interviews. So I'm just going to leave it up to him, and I'll be in the chat answering any questions that you had about our application, our process, anything else besides technical interviews. I'll be right here in the chat. Take it away, Christian.
Okay, well, first off, fingers crossed. Can I share the window correctly? I think I managed it. Welcome, my name's Christian, and I've got a slide deck here, sort of a bit of a spiel about how we do technical interviews here at Shopify. The slide deck's going to take about 15 minutes. After that, I'm going to open the floor up, and I'm looking forward to hoping that we'll have a good discussion and questions about this and about, well, life and programming and Shopify and whatever else you want to talk about. So, oops, let me see if I can manage to advance the slides. Yes, that's looking better. First off, who the heck am I and why should you talk to me or listen to me? I'm a software developer, been in the business for a while. You may notice the bits of gray hair. Based in Ottawa, Canada. I joined Shopify in April of 2018, so I'm almost, but not quite 3.5 years in. I work primarily on the back end and mainly with internationalizing the product. So adapting the product so that it works better in other languages and in other countries with different regional expectations and different legal requirements around the world. That's me. I'm going to talk today about how we do a technical interview, focusing primarily on interns, because I'm guessing that that may be the most common scenario for folks who are listening to this, but I will try to toss in a comment here and there to explain how things are a little different if you're later in your career, if you're looking for a permanent position. We do this, we're looking for the same sorts of things. It's just we go a little bit more intense for the permanent jobs. So the overall way that an intern technical interview works is we'll start off with a few icebreakers. And then there are two meaty parts to it. One is a project review. The other is a pair programming. We'll go into details on those. And we always try to leave time at the end, 5 to 10 minutes, for you to turn the tables and put the interviewer from Shopify on the hot seat and interrogate them. We'll talk about that too. Starting off the interview, if you decide to interview with us, you may meet with one or with two Shopify employees at the same time. If two people show up in the interview, please don't panic. It's not because we're trying to have strength in numbers and intimidate you. There are a few reasons why we do this. One is to have a second opinion. Sometimes an interviewer makes a mistake, misses something, doesn't spot something useful. And by having an extra pair of eyes in there, we have a second chance to catch something that we are interested in. Another thing that we do sometimes is interviewers at Shopify watch each other interview. So the second interviewer in your interview might actually just be there to put the interviewer on the hot seat to make sure that they're doing their job right. And it's not so much quality control, but sharing opinions about how we should interview. We're trying very hard to keep a level playing field so that we assess everybody with the same level of difficulty. And one of the ways we do that is for interviewers to watch each other work and compare notes. It's very normal to be nervous when you're starting off the interview. We know that, we expect that. One thing that you may not realize is that your interviewers might also be a little nervous, particularly if they're being watched by the other Shopify interviewer and sort of evaluated on how they're doing. To try and work through that nervousness and get to the point where we see you at your best, or at least as close to your best as we can manage, we'll probably start off with an icebreaker question or two, something silly, something to try and relax you a little bit. I know you're not going to be totally relaxed, but we hope to take the edge off so that we see you in a better shape. And then we'll move into the project review. If you're applying for a permanent position here, we would do a more intense project review and probably call it a technical deep dive, because we're going to dive deep into some of the technical details. For an intern, it'll be 15 to 30 minutes. The time's a bit flexible. What are we looking for in this? We're trying to see, can you explain technical material at a high level? So say you were talking to the CFO of some Fortune 500 company, and at a deep level, appropriate for when you're talking to an expert in the field and you're explaining the details of what you've been going on, what you've been going about. We're trying to make sure that you know your stuff. Even with an intern interview, we don't have that much time, but we will try to dive into a detail here or there. It's basically just to make sure that you're not trying to BS us about what you know, to make sure that when you say you did something, you actually did it, because you're able to explain what happened. We're also interested in some other aspects of how you approach the project. In particular, do you understand why things were done the way they were? Do you understand? Can you explain the business case behind it, or the reasons for a technical decision? Usually there are trade-offs involved. Like, for example, if you're choosing a programming language, why did you choose this language instead of that language? What are the advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons, and why did you end up with the answer you ended up with? Not that there's a right or wrong answer to these things, but we're curious to see, have you thought about it? Can you explain the trade-offs, the pros and cons? And finally, we're looking for, what did you learn from the project? What would you do differently if you had a do-over and could start over again? We believe and seek out people who are constant learners. That's one of our company values. We're trying to find constant learners. So if you can prove to us or give us evidence that you have been learning on the job, that's great. Throughout this, most important, please don't make stuff up. If you don't know something, and it's totally guaranteed that every candidate at some point will not know the answer to one of our questions. We're nasty that way. Don't lie to us. If you don't know the answer, it's fine to say, I don't know. We're looking for people who are genuine and honest. Going into this, you'll want to choose a project to present. Ideally, this is something that's fresh in your mind, so somewhat recent. Doesn't have to be the last thing you did. It can go back a few years, just as long as you remember the details. Something that you're proud of, that you think is interesting, and something that you're free to talk about. We recognize some people have worked other places and they signed legal agreements and non-disclosure agreements and promises with their previous employers saying, I'm not going to tell anybody about this because it's your secret. Please don't break your promises. We don't want you telling us anything that's not publicly disclosable. Also, if you're coming straight out of school, you may be tempted to use a school project from one of your courses. School projects are fine, but not a group school project, please. It's a little hard for us to understand and really assess how much of this group project was your own work and how much of it was other people in the group. We'd rather have something where we can be sure what you did. And some of you are probably scratching your heads and saying, I don't have a project. That's okay. We recognize that some people who are just starting out their career don't have a project that they really think is appropriate to talk about. If that's the case with you, there's a coding challenge that you're asked to submit as part of your intern application. I think the current one is to build an image repository. If you have nothing else to talk about, then let's talk about that project. Let's talk about how you approached it, what you were trying to accomplish, why you made the technical decisions you did. One thing to keep in mind, we're going to be remote. Back in the distantly remembered mists of time, we used to do these in person. We'd have a room with a whiteboard. We won't have that whiteboard, so we need some sort of substitute for that so that you can explain things to us. Doesn't really matter what substitute you use, but please make sure that you practice with it beforehand and you're comfortable with it. So you might choose to use some sort of online whiteboard software. We're a Google shop, for better or for worse, so we default to Google Jamboard for that. I know there are other ones out there which are in various ways better than Google Jamboard. Feel free to pick another one. Don't feel you have to use software. Feel free to use a physical whiteboard or even just a pad of paper and a pencil and hold up the paper in front of the camera. That works fine. And if you've got another option that you think works better, feel free. Okay. And that brings me to talking about the pair programming. After we have gone through the project review, we will ask you to implement a solution to a problem. What are we looking for here? Do you understand the problem? A bit of a hint here, ask questions. Usually in an interview like this, the problem will be underspecified, meaning that we won't tell you the complete set of requirements. You need to help us discover the requirements. Why do we do that? It's because that's what happens in real life. Whether you're doing consulting and dealing directly with a customer, or whether you're implementing software as part of a team in a small piece of a big machine, somebody's going to come to you and say, build this, and they won't necessarily have thought through exactly what they want or what they need. And you're going to need to help them discover that. And that's one of the skills we're looking for. So feel free to ask questions. And if something seems not right, or you think there might be a better way to approach things, let us know. We may be looking for and expecting that. What else are we evaluating about your programming? Your code quality. So is your code well structured, easy to understand? Is it extensible? Can you easily add a new feature if we throw a curveball at you and say, oh, by the way, it needs to do this too? Can your code scale to handle large volumes of data? Do you understand what the performance is going to be like as we start dealing not with tens or hundreds of records, but millions? And how do you assure yourself that the code is correct? Is it easy to test your code? Do you test your code? We're big fans of testing. Please test your code. What else are we looking for? Have you explained what you're doing as you go? Ideally, it would be nice if you kind of keep up a pattern and sort of think out loud as you're working so that we can follow along and know what you're doing. If you go silent and just type and don't say anything, it's a bit hard for us to follow your train of thought. We might get lost trying to understand what you're doing. Hopefully this will be a bit of a conversation as we go through. You'll talk about what you're doing, and maybe we'll interject and say, oh, have you thought about this? What about that? Maybe we should do this. Keep talking as much as you can, please. Also, we know that nobody has everything memorized, and we don't expect or want people who have everything memorized. But we sort of hope that you know a bit about the language you're using, and when you reach the edge of your knowledge and need to look something up, we hope that you will go look stuff up. In all of our interviews, we invite you to use the internet whenever appropriate. So let me put it this way. If I were interviewing you as a carpenter to build me a chair, and I had you come in and demonstrate your skills and said, okay, now build me a chair, and I didn't give you a toolbox to use with a hammer and nails and a saw, and that'd be pretty dumb, wouldn't it? By the same token, asking a programmer in this day and age to program without having access to the internet, to your search engine of choice, to Stack Overflow, to API docs, that would be just as dumb as asking a carpenter to build a chair without any tools. We don't do that. We want to see how you work in as close to a real life situation as we can manage. And once again, we're fans of constant learners, so we're hoping that as you go along, you'll have some thoughts about, so I'm taking a shortcut here, but if I had more time, I would do this. And then, oh, now that I've done the problem, I see that it would have been better if I'd approached it this way. And so if I had a do-over, I would approach things the other way. Ground rules for the pair programming. Please use language where you are comfortable. Sometimes people say, oh, Shopify is a Ruby shop, so I better program in Ruby to impress them. Please don't do that. We want you to show off your expertise in whatever you're used to and use on a daily basis. So if you're a Java programmer, use Java. If you're an Elixir programmer, use Elixir. If you're a PHP coder, use PHP. Whatever you want to use is fine. And if your interviewers don't know the language, that's okay too. It's actually a real plus as an interviewer if somebody uses the language I don't know, because I get a chance to learn something. I get to watch you work and ask a few questions along the way. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's a neat feature. That's great. Feel free to run your code and your tests. Hint, we like tests. Run your tests as often as you want throughout it. And feel free to use the tools of your choice, as I was mentioning in the previous slide. I got a bit ahead of myself. How do you prepare for this? Well, you're going to need to be able to share your screen while you program in your own development environment on your own computer. So please check beforehand that the screen sharing is configured. Sometimes you need to give your browser or something permissions to see the screen. Sometimes you need to reboot in order for that to take effect. Get those bugs worked out before the interview so you don't lose time during the interview getting that enabled. And please practice going through the process of creating a project, implementing a program, testing and debugging it. Sometimes people come in and they've been doing lots of programming, but it's always been modifying an existing huge piece of software, and then they can't quite remember how to create a project from scratch. Just do one before the interview so that you remember. It doesn't really matter what you use as a practice. Really anything under the sun will be fine. People sometimes ask, well, can you give me an idea what the problems are like? I'm not going to tell you what the problems are like because I don't want you pre-doing the problem. That'd be bad. But I'll give you a problem, which is, in my opinion, somewhat similar in difficulty to the kind of things we ask. It's called the Towers of Hanoi. If you look that up in Wikipedia, it's got a nice page that describes it. That's roughly the level of what we do. Any problem that we set you should be solvable without any advanced computer science data structures or algorithms. Although if you know computer science data structures and algorithms, there may be a better way of doing it with using some advanced data structure. If you know how to use that, great. If you don't, that's fine. We recognize that sometimes people come in for an internship, they really like they're in their first year of their computer science program, or they're self-taught. We don't require data science, data structures, algorithms. Use it if you got it, but don't worry about it if you don't have it. And before you come into the interview, have an empty project ready to go. Overall, please don't panic. Any problem we set you will have layers to it and curveballs we can throw at you to make it harder and harder. And every problem we set is designed so that people really shouldn't be able to handle everything. Yeah, like if you were actually able to complete the entire problem, you'd be at the Linus Torvalds level of programming. And we recognize that we can't hire a whole bunch of Linus Torvalds. There just aren't enough of them in the world. So do the best you can. The problems are designed so that they're kind of stages to them. And the first step should be attainable. So try and get to that first step, get something, some piece of it working and running, but don't panic if you find that you can't get everything finished. That's normal. And that brings us to my favorite part, where we turn things around and I put down the microphone and you get to ask the questions. Why do we do this? We believe very strongly that interviews should be a two-way conversation. We're learning about you, but at the same time, you're learning about us. Different companies do things different ways. Some people like to do things one way. Some people prefer to do things the other way. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer to some of these differences of opinion, but if you feel strongly that you want to work someplace that does things a certain way, let's find out if this is the sort of place for you. If you come to join us, we want you to be happy here. We don't want you to come here and then be miserable and say, oh, this stupid company, they do things wrong and I don't want that. So this is your chance to find out before you're committed so that you can choose a place where things are going to be done the way you want them done. Yeah, that's what there is to it. So as you're going through the interview, keep in mind there should be about 5 minutes at the end where you have a chance to ask those questions. We're not going to evaluate you on the questions. It's just for your benefit and your chance to figure out things that we might have forgotten to tell you. So thank you very much for considering us. We are genuinely grateful for all the people who consider working for us and put the time and effort into applying. And that's the end of my deck. I'm open for questions and hope we've got a bunch.
Yes, Christian, we have some questions. So anybody that has questions, please ask them in the chat and I'll be going through them. The first question comes from Valerie and it says, would talking about previous internships or hackathon challenge be okay?
Absolutely. Yes to both. The only thing about previous internships is make sure that whatever you're telling us is something that you're allowed to tell us. Don't give us any trade secrets. But yeah, as long as you're not breaking any promises to other people, great. We love to hear about what you've done in other internships.
Cool. And then Weston asks, I worked on a group project that I did 90% of. Is this okay to bring up in an interview? And it feels like a lot of people agree with this. They're the main leaders of their projects and they do most of the work. Would that be okay for them to bring that up?
It's an option, it's a possibility, but I would encourage you to think about whether there's something else you could talk about where it's clear. I think if you're the sort of person who did 90% of the work on a group project, you've probably done something else at some point before that where you could also talk about that. We just don't want to be left with any doubt about, well, did this person really do everything they said they did, or was it the other people who were carrying their weight for them? I'd rather talk about something you've done. Maybe it's not quite as impressive as the group project, but it doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to be something you can talk about so you can discuss, why did I do things the way I did? Why did I choose to store data, to process data this way? Why did I choose to design my user interface this way? What problem was I trying to solve? You can have a pretty simple project and still have a good discussion about that sort of question.
Yeah, and just to add to what Christian is saying, which I think that if it's not specifically said, a lot of people don't understand that you do have a lot of control of your interviewing process and how do you tell your story. Technically, and even in our live story interview, a lot of control of how you present yourself comes from you. And all the developers that work at Shopify are just there to help you kind of bring the best of you to light. Things that you might be missing, but you control a lot of your interview. Valerie then asks again, is there pair programming stage a HackerRank type of question? I don't believe so. I can double check on that, Valerie, but I don't believe so.
Yeah, I'm afraid you have me at a disadvantage. I'm not 100% comfortable that I fully understand what a HackerRank question is. So yeah, as I said, it's hard for me to explain what it is without giving away the problem. But if you look at Towers of Hanoi, that's it's at that level. We try to have something where you're solving a problem and implementing something, and we try really, really hard to make sure that there are no little tricks or aha insights or gotchas involved. We want it to be a generic problem that has many ways you can approach it. We don't want something where you have to see, oh, if I use a binary tree and a doubly linked list, then this will be easy. We try really hard to avoid that kind of question.
Yeah, absolutely. Juan Pablo is asking, do you have jobs for students outside of the US? So Juan Pablo, right now we hired in North America, so US, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and that's where you need to have a work authorization right now. So that's at the moment we are expanding day by day, little by little. I know that we're trying to hire a lot of interns in EMEA. And eventually, we're a remote company, so I feel like eventually we'll be open to the world. But for now, North America is our main focus. And then Alan Velasco is asking, will internship be on site or will remote be an option? Kristen, you
We
can
are
talk
fully
about that.
remote.
Yeah.
I don't have an office anymore. I am work from home 100%, and everybody in the company is working from home 100%. That we saw the writing on the wall a bit over a year ago and said, oh, okay, this is going to be a long haul. How can we turn this disadvantage into an advantage? Trying to use the jujitsu technique to use the momentum of the worldwide problem to our advantage. And the way we chose to do that was to go 100% remote. We do have a plan in place, and it's starting to come to fruition, of doing what we call bursting, where we get together in person, face to face, from time to time. And I would hope and expect, although not promise outright, but I would hope that you would have a chance to meet people face to face at some point during your internship. But you should be ready and go into it with the understanding that you'll be working mostly remote.
Yes, we are digital by design, meaning we don't have actual offices. Everybody works from home, as Christian said. And with the bursting, we have chances to meet with each other. So one question, Christian, that I just want to make clear: do they need to go into these technical interviews with a specific uh, coding, with a specific language in mind? I know that you mentioned that because we work a lot of Ruby doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be coding on Ruby. But do they have? Is there something that we prefer at Shopify, or that you think that you would prefer to see?
No, absolutely, emphatically not. Please choose whatever language you want, and also feel free, after you see the problem, after you know what you need to do, to change your mind about the language and switch to different language. Sometimes after you hear the problem, you say, oh, that would be really easy in JavaScript, but it's kind of hard in C, so I'm going to use JavaScript instead. That's great. Just make sure that whatever language you choose is something that you're really comfortable in.
Yes. And the last two questions, because I know it's already 7:30, so we're running out of time. But Vanessa is asking, what are the times weekly commitment for internships? So as an intern, you need to be 40 hours. So we do offer internships during the winter, the fall, and the summer. And I know a lot of US, Canada, North America students have better availability for 40 hours during the summer, but you need to be able to work full time as an intern. And please let me know if I'm saying your name wrong. Yoon Kim. His question is there any possibility of becoming full-time employee after the internship is over? That is our whole goal. Christian, please talk about that.
Yes, that's a big part of why we do this. To be honest, the average intern, the amount that they manage to accomplish in their internship is not all that high. And there's a certain investment involved in mentoring the intern and training them up and helping them understand the system. The reason why we go through that is twofold. One is that it's something that we feel an obligation as a good corporate citizen to do. If nobody did internships, nobody would ever learn and get trained up, and then there'd be nobody to hire. So we want to be good citizens as part of that. But there's also a selfish goal in there. We're really hoping that we'll find some great new employees this way and convince you to come and work for Shopify.
Absolutely. Our whole goal to bring you on board is to hire you full time. Well, thank you so very much, everybody that attended. And Christian, thank you so much for taking your time during the weekend and be here with our hackers. We're so excited for all of those that are participating in the Shopify challenge. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me either by DM on the Shopify channel on Discord. And thank you, Christian, for being here today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.